If you're a Kickstarter backer and you're watching this video, we freaking love you. Leave us a comment and tell us if you're a backer or not.
Welcome back to In the Works, where we celebrate ingenuity, resilience, and craftsmanship through interviews with the people behind GRIP6,
Like us!
entrepreneurs, and other American-based businesses. Subscribe to us on YouTube or wherever you get your podcast. Where did GRIP6 begin, location-wise?
I guess it began in my garage in Sandy, Utah.
Yeah. Where did it begin conceptually?
Conceptually, in my mind, many years before that, in school, while I was going to college and getting an engineering degree.
Tell us about that.
So with engineering can be awesome and it can be really boring depending on what you do. If you decide to get into like system stuff or analyzing, analysis for, like things that break and stuff, it can get really tedious and really boring. I was actually pretty nervous about getting a job that was super boring in engineering. So as a way to get out of that, I thought if I can design my own products and make stuff myself, I can kind of control my engineering destiny.
I'm going to push back on that.
Okay.
Because I knew you before then. And before you ever went into at least your master's of engineering, or even, I think, bachelor's to some degree, you already started your own company. What's the first company you started?
It was like a hospital exam table company.
It was like, what, mid-2000s?
It was like 2002.
Oh, so that was before you were in school.
Oh, wait, no, it wasn't. It was mid-2000, right. 2004 or 5.
So the reason I push back on that comment you made is because you were making them. So you weren't just like reselling or what people do. You were making the hospital beds, not even with a garage, if I remember. No, you had a very small garage.
I had a tiny garage.
Talk about that.
I was living in my sister's basement. I just moved back from Missouri, had a 3-month-old son and my wife. And I was painting houses at the time during the day. And at night I was on a chop saw with metal and a welder. And I was making hospital exam tables.
Which is crazy. These are these big tables, and they're expensive if you're a hospital.
Yeah. So I was selling them for anywhere between like $4,000 to $8,000 a pop.
And that failed.
It failed, yeah.
How? Why?
So mostly inexperience. Inexperience in both engineering and marketing.
Okay. All right. So the reason I push back is when you were in college, you already had created a business. So were you becoming an engineer to be able to do that, or was it really like when you were in school?
So here's what happened with the hospital beds. I was trying to be innovative, trying to push the boundaries. So with this particular, it was exam tables for people that do like echocardiography stuff, which is like just ultrasound scans of your heart and sometimes other parts of your body. So I knew the market for that very small niche pretty well, and you wanted the hospital table to go low enough that somebody could go from a wheelchair and just like hop straight over, so it had to be like 20 inches off the ground, which is it's actually pretty low. It's like lower than this chair. And then you also wanted it to get high enough that if a tech wanted to stand and scan somebody, they'd be able to do it. So I came up with this scissor lift system that could basically go really low and really high, because most of the time you would end up using like this pre-made like post that was kind of expensive, and it had a screw and a motor inside, and it would only get you like 14 inches difference, and I wanted like 24 inches.
So you thought you had an innovation that would get it more? Yeah.
So as far as like the marketing side, it was like, we can go lower, we can go higher, we can tilt more, we got all the things that are better, right? It's like just the better features thing. So I made this scissor lift. It was very intricate. Took me a long time to build. I tested it, had a bunch of people sit on this exam table, and I lifted it up and down, and I'm like, it's working, sweet. And then I actually shipped, this is a bit embarrassing to talk about, I shipped this table to Langley Air Force Base. So it was an Air Force Base hospital that purchased it.
Holy cow.
And so here's me, like I'm literally like in my mid-20s, don't know what I'm doing on the engineering side. I was a pretty good builder. I'd always build stuff, but I'd built this complicated thing, sent it to them. They were super happy for like a month. And then I get this phone call, and it's like the thing broke. And I was like, I'm still in my sister's basement, super poor, had no money, was like buying, tools and stuff to try to make this business go. And so the guy's like, I need this replaced. And I'm like, I don't know what to do because I don't know the engineering side. I don't know why it broke or bent. I didn't know how to fix that. If I built another one, it wasn't going to be as good because I'd have to go get that column thing, and I didn't have the money to do it. And so in the end, I ducked the guy's calls enough that and I went out of business. I felt really bad, and I felt guilty about it because
Right, you made a...
I'm sending somebody some crappy product and I couldn't stand by it, and that killed me inside quite a bit, actually. But it was like this crossroads of like, okay, I can either go find somebody to give me some money and really like throw my whole heart and soul into this little exam table company, or I could just quit it and go back to school and figure out engineering and like be able to learn how to do it for real.
Okay, so just an aside here. It's interesting to me. You get something, you buy something at the store, and you think it's a cool, unique product or whatever it is. A small company. You know that's a small company. You don't think about the fact that a lot of these small companies, it's something that's made in someone's very tiny garage by them with their spouse and their kids and their brothers and sisters or whatever it is, And there's something kind of very like down to earth about those kinds of companies. And a lot of companies, that's exactly where they start.
Yeah.
So that shows that right there. It's interesting. It's like you're talking about this big time Air Force, I assume. Langley? Is it Air Force?
Langley Air Force.
A big Air Force hospital that's buying a hospital bed for several $1,000s from you, this guy in this very small house. And I remember the beds looked pretty cool. The house didn't look very good.
Yeah, so it's interesting because it's like how in the world does an Air Force base get in contact with some guy on the west side of Salt Lake that's making these in his garage, right?
Yeah.
That's the beauty of the internet. So
that wasn't the beginnings of the internet, but it was tiny internet, right?
Yeah, yeah. I had learned how to do Photoshop in high school from being on like the yearbook like class or whatever. And so I'm taking pictures and I'm photoshopping them, and it actually looked pretty nice. And I learned how to like do I can't remember what it is, like the FTP upload and download. I'm building websites, not like you build them now. Now you just go to Shopify and you're like, click, 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 and it looks amazing and it works perfectly. Back then it was like, download this thing and get all these files to upload. And it was like, it was difficult.
But he found you. Well,
yeah. So I had made a website, had nice looking pictures, had good descriptions, and I was just on the internet, and that's how they found me.
I think just the awareness of like when you support a small company, a lot of times you're supporting just people who are very earnest in what they're doing. And even if it's not always the greatest product, which in this case that hurts, don't get me wrong, but
yeah.
Like just the fact that you're supporting someone who's living a dream, even if it's a small dream in a small house, right? Okay, so from that initial, failure, what principles did you learn about manufacturing and about business generally that helped you later?
I mean, I don't know, generally lots of stuff. Number one, you have to be pretty good at like everything. If you're an entrepreneur and you can't really afford to have people help you, you just got to figure stuff out. So that was a big one. The amount of work it takes it's close to insane sometimes. Mm. It comes in waves, and sometimes these waves are such high spikes of intense, like killing yourself to get this done, that you got to be okay with the pain of that. And I only say that because I think I had given one of these, I don't know if it was the Langley Air Force Base thing. I probably sold, I don't know, maybe a dozen hospital beds or exam tables, whatever you call them. One of them, I was late, or it was like I had given them a date of like 4 weeks or something. And anyway, I needed to get this done like within a couple of days, and I was running out of time, and I needed to get this steel stuff like welded and sent to powder coating. And it was like, I don't know, 3:00 in the morning. I'm out in my garage like with the chop saw and the welder going, oh man, I hope the neighbors don't call the cops on me because I'm making a lot of noise. And I had the door shut and everything, but I wasn't sure how much noise I was making. And I was like, and I was kind of in the ghetto, like people that you don't want to piss off are next door, and you're making them mad, right? So I'm taking the risk because I just had to get it done.
Right.
And I'm making all this noise, and I'm feeling guilty about it. Nobody said anything, which kind of surprised me. And nobody did call the cops, but
they were afraid of the chop saw.
Maybe. So there's the hard effort spikes, I don't know. Like just not giving up on stuff. I'm not sure.
Okay. So that first failure kind of kicked you in the pants for a little while.
Yeah, and it was like, it was a good catalyst. It got me to completely like change my life. I uprooted from my sister's basement and trying to like, I don't know, save money to get my own place to like, okay, let's just go up to college. And I like moved my whole family up there because I'm like, I got to commit to this 100% or I'm probably not going to do it. I was kind of afraid of like getting pulled in another direction where it was like I couldn't really finish. So it was just like, all right, I'm committing to this. I'm doing it 100%.
You think you could have done it without going to college?
Yeah, but there would have been more limitations.
You could have done it without being an engineer, it's true, but your ability as an engineer has definitely helped.
Yeah.
Like move things along a lot. I know that personally.
So I would say if I didn't have my engineering degree, where we are with GRIP6 right now would not be the same.
Right.
It'd be very different.
Okay. So, and we'll just go over this quickly. In 2012, you attempted to bring out the GRIP6 wallet. You called it the Flip and Grip.
Yeah.
And it wasn't so much a failure as maybe failure to launch, because it on Kickstarter it made $50,000, but you had set a $100,000 minimum.
Yeah. Yeah. So a quick overview is I was trying to, with my engineering degree, still come up with products that I could sell to people because I enjoyed product design. I wanted to do something that was actually affecting somebody for real. Because I had gone to college to learn engineering, but then when you start looking at engineering, there's so many jobs where you're just some small cog in a gigantic thing. So I was like, okay, I want to do product design. So I'd started with this wallet idea. I came up with the GRIP6 wallet. For anybody that doesn't really, that's listening to the podcast, doesn't know what it is, this is the GRIP6 wallet. When you squeeze it, you get 6 cards that pop up. They're kind of in a stair-step pattern. They lock in tight. So I actually came up with this in about 2012.
It was an all aluminum version.
Totally aluminum, none of the plastic pieces. I didn't know how to manufacture anything at the time, especially not mass manufacture. So I went around to shops and I was like getting guys that made CNC parts to like machine this thing for me. And the cheapest that I could get, it was like $100. Like it was literally going to cost me $100 to make these if I did a batch of 1,000.
Oh, wow.
And so it was like super expensive. So I was like, Kickstarter was new. It seemed interesting. I made a video, put this out there, and was not even planning on making money. I just wanted to do something that might intrigue people. It was going to be a ton of work. I didn't know how to do it.
Just kind of a test then?
Yeah, I needed $100,000 just to do this minimum thing. And so it might have seemed like I was some kind of a greedy person saying I need $100,000 to do this project. But truthfully, I didn't know how to make it for less. It raised almost $50,000, I think, which was actually super surprising with no marketing, just putting it out there.
Well, I remember Nathan Fillion supported it.
Yeah.
Which is pretty cool.
I don't know how old Twitter was, but Twitter was a few years old at the time. And Nathan Fillion tweets about the wallet. And I was like, what in the world? That was amazing.
Yeah.
Because all of a sudden I got all these backers. And I figured out who Nathan Fillion was. And I'm like, this guy is awesome. So there was like these small wins. There was a Harlem Globetrotter who contacted me when the thing didn't pass. And he was like, can you just make me one? I really want this thing. And I was like, I've got prototypes. Sure, I'll send it to you.
Did you send him one?
Yeah, so he sent me a basketball and like all this stuff. Like we did this trade. It was kind of cool. My kids thought it was awesome because I show them the videos of the Harlem Globetrotters and my kids think they're like NBA level, like famous. They're not quite, but they're
close,
famous.
Man.
And
they're really good.
Yeah, and it was pretty cool.
Do you still have the basketball?
I don't know. I might.
Oh, I was going to say, I doubt you do.
I like to throw stuff away. My wife likes to keep things.
Yeah.
I probably threw it away. So one of the other interesting things that came from the wallet was, I think later I tried to do like an application for Shark Tank, and I didn't have a company. I barely had a product, barely a prototype, not even a real product. But I actually ended up getting in phone conversations with like the producers of the show for like several weeks. Like they kept wanting to do more conversations, and the whole time I'm like, I don't really have a business. I barely have this product, but they had seen the Kickstarter video and they really liked it.
Okay.
And so I didn't go all the way to the show.
That's too bad.
But it went several steps. It felt like it was cut a little bit before the final cast or something.
That would have changed your Life GRIP6 wouldn't exist the way it does.
So it was interesting just to see that I made something, and Nathan Fillion, this Harlem Globetrotter, and the Shark Tank producers were like talking to me, and I'm like, okay, there's some validation there. It wasn't successful. I didn't make any money on it.
It's the right timing, though. If you could have made the wallet at that time, that was the right timing for wallets like that.
Yeah.
A few years later, it was too late.
Yeah, saturated like crazy.
Okay, so you have these. So being an entrepreneur, you have to be a serial entrepreneur before you catch on to something, and you got to be willing to work really hard and be a jack of all trades to a great extent. Would you agree with that?
Yeah.
So talk about the beginning of GRIP6. Where did you come up with the belt idea?
So it was actually like shortly after the wallet idea. In trying to do the wallet project, I was like, okay, trying to have somebody else make something for me, that's annoying because like I can't control the cost there. I have no idea how to make this thing, and I can't get somebody to do it for cheap, and so it's like it's just a non-starter.
So you started with the idea that you'd have to make it yourself?
Yeah, so with the belt, it was like, here's another small project that I could work on. I hated 3 things about belts, and if I could make myself a belt that could solve those things and also make it simple enough that I could build it myself, then I might have another Kickstarter project.
Yeah.
And maybe even a business. I wasn't sure.
And much more simple than a wallet.
Yeah, way easier to
wallet
make.
You're looking at me.
Yeah.
Okay, so I remember, because I was at the university. We were at the University of Utah.
Yeah.
At school, and I remember you starting working on prototypes. Talk to us about that.
So I started with the basic premise of these 3 things I hate about belts. Can I eliminate them? One of them was belt holes. Another was the flap, and the final one was just like minimizing the bulk, making sure it's not sticking out into my shirt.
Why did you approach it that way?
My general approach to product design is like eliminating stuff is actually more effective for a good product than adding stuff. I don't know if I learned that from the hospital beds, but as I was going through school and like working on robot projects and stuff like that, when things are complicated, they're incredibly difficult and usually unnecessarily difficult. There's a lot of things you can cut, and it makes things way better. So it's just more manageable.
Okay. It's interesting because with that mindset, you made a very simple belt that, people will use it and they'll say, why didn't this exist before?
Yeah.
It's odd that it has a patent because it's such a simple thing. But no one had thought of it before. It never did exist.
Yeah. Weirdly, I know some rock climbing people said this is exactly the same mechanism as this thing. I don't know what the thing is, but it was like this thing that's been around for 100 years. And they're like, that's that thing. And I'm like, I didn't know that existed, but...
And it wasn't. Whatever it was.
I mean, it's
just a belt.
It's the idea of a slot twisting and friction locking. It wasn't a belt in any way.
Yeah,
it was some piece of equipment.
A friction lock something, right.
But somebody could have looked at that and thought of a belt. It was a weird thing that I thought of something that nobody had commercialized or thought of before. And then, because when I talked to the patent attorney, I had actually won a engineering competition my senior year with our senior product design and got $5,000 as well as like a $2,500 gift certificate to a patent lawyer. And so I contacted him and I said, do I have to use this on my robot project or can I use it on something else? And he's like, use it on whatever. I don't care. I'm like, sweet, I've got this belt.
It's interesting. The robot arm that you made was also a medical application.
Yeah. In fact, it was the thing that was really needed for the exam tables that I was making previously. And when I was working on it, I actually thought that I could potentially start a business with it. But you're talking making a robotic thing that could hold somebody's arm up, and complicated as could be.
Yeah.
It would have taken millions of dollars to fund, and it might not have been successful.
So with GRIP6, you're looking at getting rid of those 3 things. How many prototypes would you say you created? Different types of belts?
I don't know, 20 or 30 or 40, just a bunch.
Just different types, though, because I remember we'd hang out maybe once a week or whatever, and I'd see what new prototypes you had made.
Yeah.
And you had shown me a lot of them. And and at the time I thought, belts are a good one, except they've been around for so long and so many people have already worked on them and it's going to be hard to come up with something that is innovative. I remember thinking that. But as soon as you showed me that first prototype of that design of the of the GRIP6 belt that ended up
Yeah.
happening. I was like, holy cow, this is way better. And I was coming from a military background for the most part in use of belts. If I wasn't in the military, I wasn't even wearing a belt in my normal civilian clothes, right? So I used, I hated leather belts just because they're bulky or they're heavy, stupid.
Yeah.
But I was using canvas belts, and in the military, you have to wear them. And as soon as I tried that, I'm like, this is the military belt, the perfect military belt. I think I told you that.
Yeah. Yeah, I remember you mentioning at the time, like, this, what did you say? It was something along the lines of, like, this is the best belt, or the perfect belt, or the belt I've been waiting for, or something.
Yeah. That's what I remember thinking. I was like, holy cow, this is a simple. And the nice thing is, because in the military, not only are you, the canvas belts normally in the military, you have a little, like a bulky front part. It's not the worst thing in the world, but it's
No,
clunky
you used to
take
give
in
me
and
your
all.
old belts. In fact, I was wearing a crappy leather belt. I tried to modify it to make it not so annoying because I had that flap, and then I snipped off the flap, but I tucked it right under where it went, like under one of those belt things. And then my wife said it looked stupid, and I was like thinking that I had a good solution to something, and she's like, "Now you look like an idiot." And I'm like, "I hate this belt anyway." And so then I got a bunch of your military belts, and I liked them. They were a lot better because you could adjust them all the way. You're not stuck on the holes, but you had the big flap, and then you could cut the flap down so it was smaller, but it was actually still pretty bulky because it went in and then over like several layers of stuff. And so when I had my T-shirt down, it would stick out, and I'm like, oh man, that bugs me.
And you couldn't adjust it immediately. It took a minute to adjust.
Yeah.
I really just didn't like it because of the stupid bump in the front. But so the GRIP6 belt, I was like, oh, this is it. And it was impressive to me because of how simple a design it was and how effective it was. So when I came and started working for the company later, that was the first thing I made sure that we started making a military version of that. So you came up with this belt design, and what were your first impressions when you finally got to this prototype? What were your thoughts?
I remember feeling like I was just generally like honing in on something, like I was actually getting toward a good solution. So I was mainly cutting them out late at night. So I was working on my master's degree at the time, doing some DNA extraction, and I had access to this little laser. It was like 18 by 24, and so I got these random sheets of plastic that were like left over from other projects, and I would cut these out at night, and then. Yeah, I remember just trying a bunch of different things, double slots, single slots, 2 pieces of whatever, until I eventually got to like basically the simplest possible thing. 1 slot here, 1 slot here. That's it.
Did you know that it was it? You made it and you just kind of knew that it was the one? Or
When I got to the final, like basically the GRIP6 thing, I knew I was super close. The last thing I had was the end. So I had worked on sewing machines before, and I was like, I don't like sewing machines. They're always a lot of maintenance. Can I do this without sewing the strap onto the thing? Because I don't want to sew lots of straps. And so the only thing I could think of at the time, I had this really thin military webbing, which it was like the right look, but it was too thin. In fact, I remember the first ones I made were that thin one.
Yeah.
You liked it, and you said, this is great, but then you gave it to your wife, and she wore it, and it just like crumpled too much.
Yeah, I liked that very thin version.
And so I was like, okay, that's too thin. I tried to find custom stuff that was like the right thickness, but I just couldn't find it.
You know what's funny is you hate sewing so much, but that initial run of the Kickstarter GRIP6 belts, there was a lot of sewing.
The main reason is because I couldn't find the right webbing. If I found the right webbing that was just weaved solid, I would have used it, but I couldn't. So I had those 2 layers, and I'm like, when I sew 2 of these together, it's perfect, and I don't have a better solution for now. So then I took a sewing machine and like, not like exactly like a robot, but I set up all these jigs and had this lever that I could lock in, and it would sew automatically through a whole roll of stuff. And then I could flip it and do it again. But yeah, it was like
photos of that still.
Yeah, 10,000 yards. I mean, it took so long.
I remember going into your basement. It was in your laundry room, and there's laundry all over the place, and then also these webbing straps being sewn. It looked pretty janky.
Yeah.
But the strap that they produced, if you bought one of those original Kickstarter belts that was this 2 pieces sewn together, the strap, they'll come in and they don't want to return them.
Yeah.
They'll come in and be like, it still works. And I say, You can exchange that and get a new one if you'd like. It's weird how many times people have said no to that. Okay.
To answer the question of like, did I feel like I was finally there? I did, except for the part on the end where I wasn't sure what to do with it.
Were you going to bar tack it? Is that the...
So the original like prototypes were bar tacked. I mean, on my crappy sewing machine, I just sewed a bunch of times, folded the thing over, sewed it so it would actually like catch and not come out. But it wasn't a great solution.
For everyone listening, a bar tack is basically one end of the buckle and strap are attached, so you can't interchange.
Yeah, so it wasn't actually like going through and then like holding on so it was permanently stuck. It was just taking a strap, folding the end, sewing it so that when you stuck it through the loop, it was like it had this fold, and it was still pretty low profile, but it wasn't really big enough. So the final solution ended up being, when I went to the 2 layers and sewed those together, I actually just melted the end on like a hot knife and made it kind of just bubble up. And so it was kind of ghetto looking.
Versions of those I remember, because the original ones,
yeah, some of them would pop through and stuff. So I remember showing a friend of mine the belt, and he was like, this looks janky, like you'll never be able to start a business with this. And I'm like, I already sold like 10,000 of these on Kickstarter.
He was
Cassidy. Because it wasn't quite the fit and finish, but it was hidden. And so most people in the Kickstarter didn't care. They got their belts and they were like, these are awesome. How can I buy more?
I remember as soon as I saw it, I was like, this is a successful belt. I didn't think it was going to get as big as it did, though.
Yeah, that was good timing. Kickstarter was like growing with interest and having lots of interesting projects, and some of those projects were going like millions, and so it was like this crazy phenomenon of success. And then I would say maybe the year or two after the Kickstarter that I did for the belt, people started flopping on their millions of dollar raisings, and people started getting burned and getting annoyed, and the Kickstarter glow, which used to be like amazing in 2014, 2015, just started going downhill.
Yeah, because so the original, as a background, in 2013 you created the belt, but it wasn't until 2014 that the Kickstarter was out. That took several months to get that going. And I want to say you didn't spend any advertising dollars on that.
Zero.
And how much did it make?
It raised $106,000.
Yeah, from a marketing perspective, just $106,000 without marketing is awesome.
That's crazy.
That shows a lot of groundswell of support.
Again, it's kind of like that technology and the timing. The internet was there, this platform that could like gather people that were willing to throw in $20 to $50 and potentially fund like an interesting project. And that was cool to be part of that, especially even as a backer, until half the people just don't show up, don't give you your stuff, and then you're like, I just got screwed.
Yeah.
It doesn't feel so good.
Oh, yeah.
So I was actually pretty worried about it. Took me 6 months.
I want to set the story, though. Okay. So the Kickstarter happened in 2014, and you largely did I remember we shot a couple videos and stuff like that. I'm sure if you used the videos when I was around, because I went and entered the military at that time, or the active duty. But you pretty much set up the Kickstarter yourself. Is that right?
Yeah.
And it was successful, made $106,000, and then it was time to fulfill the orders and talk about that.
Yeah. So
how many orders to begin with? You say 10,000?
Yeah. So it was 2,500 backers, and I think the total number of actual belts was about 8,500. So I was doing a batch of 10,000 to have a few extras in case things got ruined or whatever.
We had something called the buffet pack in the Kickstarter that sold all 10 options in one thing. It was how many people bought that?
There was quite a few, crazy. Yeah.
So you had 2,500 backers, but there was an average of 4 per.
Yeah, something like that. And I had priced it wrong. I priced them at $15 a pop.
15?
15. I mean, thinking back at it, I'm like, that's ridiculous. No, 15 was if you bought a single one. If you bought multiples, it dropped down to like 12 or 11 or something. It was so low. I miscalculated that one.
Yeah, but maybe you got a lot of people that you wouldn't have got. I don't know. People that
maybe. Just I might have been able to charge more and still have gotten it.
No, okay. I'm sure you.
So, me and you and Winslow, your brother, the other business partner, we had gotten together kind of like before we all graduated. I had showed you guys the belts. I was talking about doing a Kickstarter. We had said, let's maybe do a business. And then graduation came and you went off to the Air Force and Winslow got a job and I got a job and it kind of just stopped.
Yeah.
And so...
Not too long, though. For a few months, maybe?
Yeah, it was 6 months or something.
Oh, really? I didn't know
So
that.
you had given me $1,000 to buy a sewing machine because I'm like, I needed an industrial sewing machine to be able to like make these proper prototypes. And you're like, here's $1,000. Just if you start a business, this is my 10% or something.
Oh, that's right. My memory's fuzzy.
So I bought a sewing machine on eBay. That was an industrial sewing machine. It was not a super great one, but it was enough to make a bunch of prototypes. So I'm working at a medical company. In the evenings, I'm making like this Kickstarter video. So I make the Kickstarter video in 2014, summertime, kind of just like push it out there in front of the world, hold my breath a little bit, and it did super well. Again, it raised that $106,000. People were excited about it. People were sharing it. Zero marketing spend. I have no social influence in any way. I'm an engineer, so it goes without saying. Right. So I don't have a group. I don't have a network beyond like my direct friends, like you and Winslow.
And we had no network. No one you knew had a network.
Yeah, so that was the cool thing about the Kickstarter is like it was a great opportunity and just good timing.
For me at the time, I got to be a bit of a fly on the wall in the sense that I was just like, I love that someone I know was just going and doing something, you know, maybe that a lot of us are afraid of doing, going and starting something and taking a risk and stuff. So it was cool to see it start to grow from that. Especially I remember the Kickstarter came out and we had like the analytics from the Kickstarter. You could see it on a daily basis. Man, I spent so much time just watching that. Yeah.
Yeah.
Grow and get more and more popular. It's pretty cool.
Yeah, and then we did a little closing party at Winslow's house, like the final day, and you know, it was kind of cool because a bunch of people jumped on right at the end, and it pushed us over 100,000.
The last several days, that's right.
Yeah, it was like the last 2 days it raised a bunch. Because some people like look at it and they think it's interesting, and they're like, "Do I get on? Do I not? I'm going to wait." And then at the last minute, they jump on, and so you get this spike at the end. It was
you know, it's interesting. Here's a successful Kickstarter project. 10 years ago, or close to 10, and you made good money. You didn't even have to have marketing spend.
Yeah,
but a lot of it was sucked up, of course, in manufacturing.
Like I mentioned, I had undersold. Like I had not set the price properly, which meant the 106 was nice, but the first thing I ran into was like, this is like almost 10,000 belts. Like I was planning on doing a couple hundred in my garage. That's why I made it so simple so I could make it myself. And then with 10,000, I'm like, I've got a day job. Like I can't do this. And so I started contacting manufacturers in the United States because the whole time.
Why'd you keep your day job?
Because 106,000, when a lot of that has to go to materials and machines and stuff, it's like
just wasn't enough.
No, not enough.
Looking back, do you think that was the right decision, or would you wish you would have just jumped off?
My wife she's very risk averse. That kind of stuff makes her nervous. I was, keeping her from wanting to divorce me or whatever.
Yeah. And you had 5 kids.
Had 5 kids. Yeah. So the thing that I was risking was time, right? So I didn't want to risk my house, my job, my money, things like that. But it was like, okay, and maybe it's not a great trade-off. I missed a lot of hours with my kids being out they helped and stuff, but I was in that garage like an additional 12 hours at night. Like it was crazy.
Yeah, you were working at least 2 jobs.
So yeah, I would work my day job, worked it out with my boss. I could go in early at 6 and get off at like 2. I'd pick up some kids. Some other kids would go with my wife to the gymnastics gym, and I would have the other kids, and I'd go out in the garage and I would work. And then my wife would come home and I would keep working, and it'd get to be about midnight. And then I'd go in and I'd get 4 hours of sleep and I'd start all over again. And it went like that for about 6 months, and it was hell. Like it was. So
you were late on the orders, but you filled them all.
Yeah, because
everyone kind of expects on Kickstarter that it's going to be a bit late. Everyone knows that.
Yeah, it was late. You give ideas on what you think is going to happen, but that changes drastically depending on how many you have to make.
So, the Kickstarter people that have purchased have remained some of the most loyal fans of GRIP6.
I love the Kickstarter backers. They're so If you're a Kickstarter backer and you're watching this video, we freaking love you. Leave us a comment and tell us if you're a backer or not. Because anyway, the Kickstarter backers were so cool because they give you the money, they're waiting for this project, and even though you're late, as long as you're communicating and you're saying, hey, here's the struggles, here's the things that we're running into, they didn't care at all. You could take 2 years to deliver something if you're communicating it to them. They just want to know that they're part of the thing. So when you get nervous and you say, oh, we're late and I don't want to face them and it's scary, it doesn't matter. Like, you need to just address them and say, here's the situation. And then they're usually fine. Like, almost nobody is like, give me my money back. They're just like, okay, thank you for communicating.
I think there's such an important principle there, that because that humanized you. It may and showed them that you're a real person. It's a business. Or, it's not just some cold business somewhere. And sometimes as GRIP6, we have this feeling that everything we do has to be perfect and everything has to be very polished. I think people really wanting to get away from that. They'd rather have true communication from companies. Yeah. They want someone who owns everything. Because I remember the emails you'd send are like, this is where we are in the process, and I told you this, and this is what happened. It slowed it down a little bit. Because as a user, because I bought the buffet pack, I remember. It was nice. I thought it was such a cool thing to see this person sharing the struggles.
That's funny. I didn't even realize you were a backer. So you were getting all the emails and everything.
Yeah,
that's funny.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you for being
really
a backer.
well on writing them.
Yeah, so I would try to get good pictures. I would show sometimes my kids helping, just interesting things. I remember having a picture of like running orange thread through the sewing machine, and it would build up, and it would look like Cheeto Dust on like the needle and stuff. So I'm taking a picture. Here's the Cheeto Dust.
Such a cool thing.
Yeah.
You decided to make these in America. We already talked about the fact that you wanted to manufacture yourself, but
yeah.
Why was it important that these belts be made in America?
So besides the fact of like having that experience with the wallet where it was like stuff was out of my hands and I was relying on people, I was kind of paying attention to the amount of stuff made in China, and mostly through like my kids' toys and stuff. I was poor going to school, so I didn't buy a lot of stuff, but there was a certain point where I was trying to find a decent pair of fingernail clippers because we just had these crappy cheap ones. And I was looking at them, and they were made in China, and I'm like, okay, I'm just going to get some made in America ones. And so I look around a lot of stores for a very long time and couldn't find any. And so I started doing research, and I'm like, there's like almost literally no fingernail clippers made in the United States, and that's weird. And then there were several other industries. I remember looking into stainless steel water bottles. None made in America, only in China and other places. And I was thinking like, wow, that's really weird, and that seems like that's off, like something's wrong there. And so I started researching it more, and it turns out that the economy is always based on manufacturing. Any good economy comes from manufacturing. So when you think about the powerhouses of economic, countries, you think of Russia, Germany, Japan, the United States, China, England. These are all like big world powers. They were all manufacturers. They were producing goods that other people wanted, and that was the real power. And so
why is that the real power?
I don't know this stuff exactly right, but when somebody is willing to just pay for stuff that you have, there's power there. It's like,
if you manufacture, it's kind of like it becomes almost a natural resource. The ability to, it's not a natural resource, but traditionally kind of countries have been powerful because of their natural resources. But if you can manufacture, you're
creating a natural resource.
Yeah. So you were looking around for something as simple as fingernail clippers, which seems like they should be very easily made in the United States.
Yeah.
And stainless steel
water bottles.
If does anyone know a U.S. made stainless steel water bottle? It'd be interesting if that's changed.
Yeah, it would be interesting because I remember looking for many weeks trying to find something, and there was just nothing. But anyway, so the concern of what are we doing in the United States with manufacturing? And so the experience that I had with the Kickstarter was when I said, okay, I want to make this in America because I think it's important for our economy more than anything else. I can't change the world. I can't change policy. But if I was going to do something myself as far as making a business, I wanted to do it the way that I thought was the right way, which is like to encourage American manufacturing, because I feel like our economy is going to be in trouble at some point in the future if we don't do that. So when I was looking around for other American manufacturers to do this manufacturing because I was like, this is too much for me, I got a whole bunch of like depressing answers. I would find people that would be able to do the straps, and I'm like, hey, I need this, and I need 10,000 yards. I'm feeling like this is a huge order, right? Like, people aren't going to ignore me. I want 10,000 yards. And I got a lot of ignored. I got a lot of like pricing that was just astronomically high. And so I had sold the belts for, at the very best, $15, but probably more like an average of $13 a pop. If I had somebody else making my strap, I was losing money on the deal. It was expensive. And so when I would push back and say, man, that seems expensive, what can we do? They would say, let us hook you up with our partners in China.
I know, that's so frustrating.
It was super frustrating because I'm like, I'm trying to give you business, but you're overcharging, and your solution is go to China. And in addition to that, so many people told me, like, you're going to do this for a business? And I'm like, yeah. And they're like, you better go to China. And I'm like, why? People don't make stuff here. If you don't go to China, you're going to fail.
Yeah, they said they're going to go out of business.
Yep.
They're never going to be successful.
Multiple people told me that.
You think about this. Someone comes to you and they say, I have, not only an idea for a project, but I have a successful business that could happen right now, and I just need some resources from you. As a business owner, as a manufacturer, can you imagine sending them to China?
It's weird.
It's a strange thing to me.
You're sending people to your competitors because you're not squeezing the high enough profit out of them or something?
Well, not only just competitors, but I would say if someone came to us and was like, I have a successful Kickstarter, we made this much. If we're like, man, we couldn't do it, but I'll bet you we can find someone who can.
Yeah. In
the United States, like close to us, because you're offering them money, resources, and they were just turning it down. Yeah. But I think that's old think. That's like old think. If it's not done this exact way, I can't do it. And that's really the issue. We only do things this very certain way. If you want it to do if you want to do something in a more dynamic way, you're going to have to go to China. It's odd thinking.
Yeah. The other thing is, like, when people would say, if you don't go to China, you're going to die. The question, like, number one, that would annoy me and make me want to just do it even more, because I'm like, no, screw you. You don't even know, right? So, but the question is, what is it specifically that makes you think that if you don't go to China, you're going to die? Like, you don't know how much time and effort I put into the design of the simplicity that this thing could be easy to make.
Yeah.
It's not complicated. It's not like it takes a special machine or anything like that. Like, so there's a lot of things that people just, I don't know, didn't even consider.
Well, the assumptions they make, right?
Yeah, exactly. That's what it is. It's all bad assumptions.
So talk about this, because you had a lot of people tell you that you're going to fail if you don't go to China. And you didn't fail, at least yet.
Give me time.
You had a lot of naysayers. Not just in that sense, but you had a lot of naysayers as you started the business.
Yeah.
Tell us about that and how you got over that.
It's a weird thing when you're starting a business. So one of the things that I knew that I didn't know was marketing. And so I was always nervous that when it came to marketing, like, Kickstarter was a boon because it did the marketing for me. But after that, I didn't know what to do. And people were saying, go to China or you're going to die. And there's always a lot of, like, it's really easy to be a critic. It's really easy to be negative. It's pretty hard to actually be the one that, like, carries the torch and makes something happen.
Because the reality is a lot of things do fail.
Tons.
There's risk involved in almost every endeavor. And so some people are so risk averse, they hate the idea of failure. But you've been able to survive through it, You know, it's funny. With a face like that, you've been able to do quite a bit.
When I hear somebody with an idea and they're pitching it, and I think of the difficulty of how hard it's going to be to make that thing, like when what's-his-name came in just the other day, I'm like, that's awesome that he's excited about that he's willing to push that. Man, that is some pain. I know the pain that's going to come with trying to make this idea a reality.
But you didn't naysay him.
No, hell no. I would never naysay somebody.
Yeah, exactly.
I would say, here's the things that I would recommend. It's going to be tough, but do it. Go for it.
New
Push
things are always made in opposition to. That's why it didn't exist before a lot of times.
Yeah.
Because someone thought it's going to be too hard to make that thing.
Yeah.
Anyway, you decided to make it yourself. You got your sewing machines out.
So I finally come to the conclusion, after being super frustrated with trying to get American manufacturers to want to have some business. And I'm like, fine, I'll do it myself. This is going to take me a lot longer, and this is going to be painful. But I did a quick calculation because people were telling me it was like $4 or $5 per belt strap. And I'm like, okay, I'm buying this webbing, and this is actually only 25 cents worth of webbing. I'm doubling it, so it's 50 cents. And then if I sew it, how much is a sewing machine? I look it up. A sewing machine's $2,500, and I'm like, divide that by 10,000 belts, that's 25 cents a strap. Holy cow, this is 75 cents, not $5.
Right. $5.
And so, yeah. So then I'm like, oh, this is the very beginnings, and this is what we always end up doing at GRIP6. What are the raw material costs? Now, how do we get the labor lower? Like, how do we really make this so that we can sell it? So that was the first time. So I felt good about buying the sewing machine. I bought a tumbler, little tiny Mr. Deber, $3,000. Found a laser cutter that was up in Idaho, a couple 100 miles away. He cut it all out for like $1 a piece. And so by the time we got done paying for everything, paying for the machines, paying for the materials, paying for shipping, paying for everything, we had $20,000 left over. So this, and when I say we, it was me and a lot of people. Winslow helped a lot. My wife and kids helped. Family members helped. Random friends would come by and help make stuff. It was kind of like a community project, which was really pretty cool.
Okay, so successful Kickstarter. You're left with $20,000. What'd you do with that $20,000? I should say, what dumb thing did you do with that $20,000?
The dumbest thing you can imagine. We trusted a marketing company. No, so with knowing that my weakness was marketing and having $20,000 left over, which, by the way, if I was to take that $20,000 and pocket it, it would have been something like $5 an hour for all my time. Like, it was pittance compared to the effort that was put into it. But anyway, we had this $20,000, and I'm like, okay, I don't know marketing. Let's find the best marketing company that we can find that's local, like somewhere in the state, and let's have them build us a website and help us start marketing. So we found this company we found a marketing company. They built us a website. It cost $30,000. So on the weekends, Winslow and I would go to random shows like in the summer, like county fairs and things.
You guys made quite a bit on those.
Yeah, we would make like maybe $1,000 a weekend or something. Sometimes it was better, sometimes it was worse. So we would go to county fairs and we would make a little bit of money here and there. So we gave them the full $20,000, and then we kept paying them another $10,000 based on like us hustling on the weekends at these shows. And then they built kind of a pretty website.
It's not a well-functioning one, but
didn't function that well, and then their marketing was crap.
You can go on the Wayback Machine and see it.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah, if you go to 2015.
2016, yeah.
At 2015, grip6.com, it's the one that has you're like in a splash of color, right?
Yeah, it's like you would scroll and it would do some little animation.
It had kind of a cool idea, but it was too complicated for what it was selling.
It was flash over function.
Exactly.
Yeah. So we quickly ran out of money. We were down to zero. We paid all this money for this website. It was not bringing in sales. It was sucky. So we did have a small email list from the Kickstarters, and we would hit them up occasionally at Christmas time. Hey, if you're looking for belts, here we go. And so we would sell some that way.
And then you had another Kickstarter early 2016, which is the carbon fiber Kickstarter.
Yeah, but but before that, we had figured out online marketing the real way.
Before?
I think so.
Oh, really?
Wait a second.
I think it was. I could be wrong.
So I quit my day job
2016
March.
After the carbon fiber Kickstarter.
Oh.
So I don't know when that happened, as far as like, because I was in another state. I was active duty Air Force as a JAG, and I was and I would call you like almost every day talking about the business things, So that's my experience, just comes from those conversations.
Yeah, so we kind of like just floundered for a while trying to sell stuff online and just not being successful at all. And then Winslow had a friend who had done a Kickstarter project for a little wallet and had done okay, but they had used a marketing company that really knew how to do Facebook ads. And so we talked to that company, and they basically like showed us how to do Facebook, and it was like the heavens opened.
Yeah.
We went from like $5,000 a month in sales to like $90,000 the next month.
Yeah.
It was like trying to keep up with production was difficult.
And that was the start of the problem of trying to keep up.
Yeah, and then it was like, all right, quit the job.
Yeah.
Let's go for real.
So the Kickstarter 2014, But it wasn't until 2016 that you and Winslow quit your full-time jobs and started. In fact, the first employee was Neil in early 2016.
Yeah.
From that point on, it was e-com, advertising on Facebook and Google, and building from that.
Yep.
Now, before we go, what would be the basic advice to someone that wants to start a business and maybe not even wants to start a manufacturing business, but wants to start a business in America?
Do it. It's hard, but just do it. I remember hearing somebody like, I think Kevin says this, Yvon Chouinard, he's the guy that started Patagonia, and he says, don't start anything. It's too regulated. It's too hard now. Back when I did it, it was easy. Now it's too hard. Don't do it. And to be honest, things are way harder now online as far as sales go than when we started. But I still say do it. Yeah. It's going to be tough, but just
There's always opportunity.
Yeah. You just got to know where to look. You got to be willing to keep punching, and you just got to keep trying hard.
And that's the thing is, if you're hungry and the people who have already made money aren't as hungry, you'll win. You know
That's exactly right. And I think that's probably the one thing that I've got, like this insatiable, like I can't stop myself when I have an idea.
Yeah.
That has been kind of like the driving force behind everything I've done.
Yeah. Something that hurts you in every other aspect of life has been, it's fun to watch it because I don't have that mentality. I mean, I just don't have that. It's cool to see that in someone else, you know. Thanks for joining us on this episode of In the Works, where we celebrate ingenuity, resilience, and craftsmanship through interviews with the people behind GRIP6, entrepreneurs, and other American-based businesses. On this show, we talked about the important successes and the challenges of American manufacturing, especially small manufacturing companies. We also, of course, got a peek behind the curtain at GRIP6 and what makes us tick, in particular BJ. If you'd like to join in on the conversation, be sure to leave a comment or send us a voice message on our podcast page. And while you're there, be sure to subscribe so you never miss an episode. You can find us on YouTube, Spotify, Apple, or wherever you get your podcasts.